Going live, going live. Hi, this is Anita with Explore Pilates. It is Tuesday, and took me a couple of minutes. I was running around like a chicken with its head cut off, trying to find the headset that would go with this device. It's like, anyhow, before we get into that drama, my guest today is Michael Johnson, and I am waiting for him to show up so that I can invite him. We're going to talk about his long-term Pilates practice. He's been doing Pilates for 40 years. And texting him now. Yes, I am multitasking. And hopefully he gets that message. So, how is everybody doing? My tech setup is really unique today. Let me turn my camera around. Oh yeah, super unique. Doo-doo, this is my iPad stand. Why I took it out? Oh, hey there. I took it out because it's been sitting on my counter so that I can bake with it. All right. Michael, you need to request to join, and then we could start the live conversation. Or did you request and I didn't see it? There we go. Go live with. And he is MattFit_NYC. Let's see. Are you coming on? There you are. Hey, Matt.
Hey.
I always want to call you Matt because of your handle, but I know you're
Yeah,
Michael.
that was a trademark I acquired because I had a vision. Hi, everyone. I'll explain my handle, MattFit. It's a trademark because I wanted to take a look at all the mat exercises globally, because every exercise program in the whole world has a mat program.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and wanted to group together all the exercises and how to be fit, on a mat.
Right.
Kind of like that.
Yeah.
That's why it says, I like to improve people's lives through exercise. Doesn't show that I'm a yoga teacher. Doesn't show that I'm a Pilates teacher. Doesn't show that, Yeah. Hi, everyone.
Yeah. So we'll wait for a few more people. I didn't realize my headset was not. My earbuds were not connected to my iPad, and I'm like, wait a second.
You sit there going, right. So
hey there,
cool.
Sammy. Glad you could join us. So yeah, I just have one. We've talked about so many different topics, but today's focus was going to be about your 40-year practice and how that started. For people watching through my channel, they might not even know about Romana, and so that would be really neat if you could take us back to how you started.
How did I start? Well, this started in about 1983. I think I was 16 years old, and a high school athlete. And my mom had a bunch of girlfriends come over to the house starting once a week or twice a week. And they were doing these mat exercises, and they bought this reformer. You can see that reformer on my page. It's that 1983. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was really your mom's reformer that she used.
First reformer. She still has it.
Wow.
Okay, so we still have that, and this guy would come over to the house and train them, and his name was Kim Lee. He was my first teacher. And he'd come up from Los Angeles, and he was visiting Salt Lake, or he had been up in Salt Lake because mom lived there or something. And but he basically ran a business with his wife down in Los Angeles, and they trained all the Hollywood stars. They were ex Ron Fletcher students, and started their practice down there. But he was up there for a year or something there or two in Salt Lake, and that's how I started Pilates.
My goodness. And Kim Lee kind of sounds like a Korean name.
I think so, yeah. I think it was a stage name. His real name was Donald Soper.
Oh, okay. All right. So
yeah. So he he'd also try to delve into singing and performing down in Hollywood, and he was quite a talented person. He had a martial arts background, he had a gymnast background, dance background. So yeah, he had a lot of different flavors in him, right? So
yeah, and did that all come through in his teaching?
very much so. Yeah, Kim was a excellent trainer. He ended up being going on tour with Madonna. I mean, he was like people knew about him, and if you wanted to change your shape or your body in Hollywood, you went to Kim Lee, right? So he used the equipment a little bit differently, cosmetically a little bit, right? But he understood fitness, so that was really important. And he could literally change the shape of your body.
Wow.
It was fascinating. So I got the chance to later then open up a studio in Salt Lake with him and study under him and did his certification. That was in 1993 or 4, I can't remember, around there, 94, 95. And, you know, I basically wanted to learn more, so I went to Romana's, you know, in 1996. December 1996, I enrolled into the Sean Gallagher Romana program in New York City.
Okay.
But I'd known Romana, right? So this is kind of an interesting segue, is that in, what was it, 1985, I moved to New York, or 1986, and was Wall Street, worked on Wall Street as an apprentice down there on the COMEX exchange.
Right.
And I would go once a week and get a lesson from Romana when she was at Tai Studio at 156 East 56th Street, or 160 East 56th Street. And I remember seeing Sean Gallagher, Bob Linkins, and everybody there as students. And I was a student.
Wow.
And that was before Sean had, you know, ownership or bought the trademark or did whatever he did, you know. So this is way back. And Tai, I also took lessons from him. He worked at Romana's studio, or owned that studio. And so I had that experience before, you know, I signed up for the program, you know. So I had plenty of Pilates, like, you know, experience, but I was interested in running triathlons, and I was interested in, you know, when I worked in New York, I was working on Wall Street. I had a side job of working at New York Health and Racket Club on the weekends and train people.
So you didn't have any spare time?
No, not really. You know, you're busy, A-type personality, you know.
Yeah.
That's what you did, you know. You filled up all your time with all that energy and all your youthfulness.
Right. But I mean, Pilates, how fortunate, you know, how serendipitous that you were directed straight to, like, through your job in New York, to Romana and her studio and this, you know, big team of, now they've become big names. Trainers, and they were, you know, they just became big names.
Just regular people like me, you know, just going to do their workout. You know, Pilates for me was, you know, my grandfather was a professional soccer player. So, so, you know, I always wanted to, you know, be an athlete or do that kind of thing. He was a lot of my young inspiration, you know, to work out, you know, things like that. So it was his recommendation to get into things like gymnastics or yoga. Right? So Pilates,
the soccer players, he recognized.
Like, so along with that, it's like, okay, yeah, you want to ski, you want to play lacrosse, you want to do all these things, then do this to help you do that. And it was kind of like, you know, it wasn't quite, you know, so I was just tried it out. I kept with it. So the reason why I stuck with Pilates is because it was so hard
Yeah.
as a
So
young man.
I want to dial back because, you know, one of my questions is
Mm.
how was it different studying with other teachers before Romana? Did you have like in your mind or and also in your body, was there like these are
Oh,
the
yeah.
people who brought me to Romana and this is where Romana took me?
And Romana and I had a lot of that, you know, back and forth. Where I said, well, I learned this exercise, and she'd, no, do it this way, or something like that. All right, this is more structured. You learn, you know, maybe that, and that's good, you know, but let's not that it's better or anything like that, you know, but it was, you know, more formal, I guess, you know, in a way. And that's what I wanted from Romana was structure, right? Because I'd learned all these exercises, and now, okay, you know, but, you know, again, with her, everybody, you know, I think my experience with her is all I can explain is that
Yeah, that's why we're talking.
she was a doer,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you wanted to learn how to do something, you did it, and you did it again, and you did it again.
Right.
And if you weren't capable of doing that, she'd just simply look at you and said, you need more practice.
Huh. Wow.
So it wasn't like teaching you how to do some advanced move when you don't have the skill set. She was like, okay, see, the exercise teaches you. You know,
Well,
you know,
yeah.
kind of
Okay.
thing.
Well, I'm thinking
You know,
about like when you do your rollover for the first time. You, and actually, that leads me to another question. Like, what were these Pilates movements like for you for the first time? Did you find that in your mobility repertoire that you were like, oh, I can do this?
was a young, developing young man. We're all stiff, you know. And for me, I wanted that which I didn't have.
Right.
You know, I could run, I could lift weights, you know. So, like doing the tree stretch for me was, you know, like, I mean, literally my leg would shake with joy.
Yeah,
You
you
know, I'd
used
be
that in
like
class yesterday.
climbing up here, my leg would, you know, I didn't understand it or didn't, you know, at the time.
Yeah.
You know, things like that were very difficult for me. So that was what I was trying to obtain, was that level of comfortability with that. You know, I really truly believe that you never really do the exercise the same.
Right.
Every time you do something, it's a different experience. It's like you never step into the river twice, the
I
same
was just
river
thinking
twice.
that. Right. Yeah.
Right? So you don't. So, like, you know, these challenges as a young person, they were, you know, I looked at them as just as serious challenges as running 12 miles.
Right.
Right. So
you got some friends coming on here.
yeah. Right. So
But I find it unique. I find it interesting, and it's a unique perspective also that you had all of this athleticism, and I find that like there was something that hooked you, perhaps also because your grandfather had planted the seed with all of his athleticism and had told you to do something that would basically, he was telling you, stay limber and flexible so that you can keep on doing this strong, what's the word that they use in kinesiology? Like it's the high speed burst type of work that,
well, that needs to be conditioned, right? You can see all
right.
these performance athletes doing speed work. So they're just learning how to move quicker.
Yeah.
You know, that's it, you know. So and there is such camps and, you know, performance programs that just work on speed, you know, and your nervous system to just do that, right? Your footwork, and have you do tasks and sprints and prepare your body to have that kind of endeavor, right?
Right.
So there is that, you know, there isn't just stretch, strength, stamina, you know, stability, there's speed, right? And then I always like to add this one, spirit.
Spirit. Yeah. Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned the river. So tell me a little bit about like 40 years of doing Pilates. It's kind of the same old, but it's different every day. So if it's different every day, how is that different from just doing something completely different? Like,
But that's two-part answer to that
mm-hmm.
question. One reason why you do a regimen like, say, the mat work, which is a 26 exercise program, or you do like Ashtanga yoga, which is A series, B series,
Mm-hmm.
is to, you're teaching your nervous system to learn.
Right.
Right. So when you have something every day, you can see your progress or your regress,
Mm-hmm.
very visible, because physical fitness is a very rude endeavor. It's just whatever you put in, you get. Whatever you don't put in, you don't get. So, so it's not like 1+1 = 2 every time, you have to put in effort. So, I think there was a quote I read today about Joseph Pilates: you can't pay for it.
Yeah.
You can't, you got to do it. So
was it money that won't buy you fitness?
yeah, or
Like
something like
you
that.
can't buy
Right.
all the machines. You
Right.
can't, you
You can't.
could pay
Right.
you could throw money at teachers, but if
So
you're not
that's
doing it
what. So
yourself.
that's the second part of that question is then
Mm-hmm.
it's just like taking care of yourself. It's just no different than taking a vitamin or not drinking coffee or drinking more water or lifestyle or how everybody's now
Mm-hmm.
hyper stylized everything they do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Soon this is going to be a trend. Comb your eyebrows,
Right.
So.
Yeah, we go up and down with that. I think I'm still planting trees.
No, but
According to Instagram.
I think that it's part of loving yourself or loving part of what it's not loving the method or or the what I'm saying, it's just trying to take care of yourself. And as an aged person and had a lot of injuries, my practice is different than it was 20 years ago. I can
Right.
see where those old injuries and stuff have, say, caused me to have, deficits or weaknesses in functions that create problems. So then you really have to solve the issue. You
Mm-hmm.
can't let your nervous system keep cheating all the time.
Right.
I think, like, for instance, the last 3 years, I have dialed in my feet. I'm like, I'm going to get that knot out of my foot. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
get that knot out of my foot. No, I'm going to really get that knot out of my foot,
Right.
and try to really spend some time with yourself and, and see why and learn from others and go to PT and,
Mm-hmm.
do what you need to do and then apply all that information to your practice.
Right.
Right. So it informs you, but it informs your practice.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, there is I'm not such a hard liner on teaching, there's, and everybody at some point of their growth, they're 5 years into it and they're just like, yes, and then 10 years, it's like, woo, wait a minute.
Wait a
What I
minute. Yeah.
taught 5 years ago, yeah, I still kind of believe a little bit, but not such woohoo, and then 15 years into it, you're like, wait a minute here.
But you're still doing the
You have to
same.
sit.
It's still the same routine.
Mm, that's right. If you,
It's same, but it feels so different because if so, here's the idea that's coming to my mind is that if you've doing this is highly, um, this is a highly specialized mobility system for highly sensitive people. I find that people kind of self-select themselves. People who come to Pilates are very sensitive. That's why we. That's why also you'll notice a lot of secondary hobbies or professions, and or vice versa. That we like primarily we are artists. Perhaps we are high level athletes, but it's always high level something. Or if they're professionals, it might be a doctor or a surgeon and who has come into Pilates, or so people functioning at high levels intellectually, artistically, athletically. And this is just trying to get to, I think I'm getting lost on the way, but just trying to get
it's
to,
a precision method, right?
yes,
So all these
thank
tools
you.
are just like training wheels for
Yeah,
you to have these skill sets, right? This
yeah.
is basically gymnastics,
Mm-hmm.
and calisthenics with training wheels.
Right.
right? The whole idea is to come off the equipment, to not use the training wheels, and then use your own body, like a circus performer, right?
Yeah.
So this, and I often tell people, if Joseph Pilates hand this to a boxer, we'd be doing different stuff.
Right.
If Joseph Pilates handed this to a gymnast, you'd probably be more accurate to the system. Joseph Pilates or the dancers took over, well, it's kind of not what Pilates is. It's not dance, right? So now we've got this whole thing, right, that's really dance intensive. Nothing against dance. I love, it's just that, but he wasn't a dancer.
Yeah. So how does that work with, I mean, that must have been interesting being trained by Romana, because on the one hand, she trained directly with Joseph Pilates, and yet she was a former dancer, and here she was training you, an athlete.
Here's everybody's problem, right? I'm going to use yoga as an analogy, right? Krishnamacharya taught Patabi Joyce, and you have the Ashtanga yoga system. Krishnamacharya taught Iyengar, and you have the Iyengar system. Krishnamacharya taught Deskacharya, and you have Vinyasa system. Krishnamacharya taught, the woman, now you have Hatha yoga. So who was the guy who was the smart one? Krishnamacharya, right? So let's do it with the Pilates. Joseph Pilates taught Ramana. You have that system. Joseph Pilates with, whoever, all the other elders, right? So, and then you have that system, Ron Fletcher, you have Eve Gentry, you have, Creola Tier, you have Kathy Grant, you have this type experiences, right? They're just experiences. Yeah. So then all of a sudden, out of those, branches of tree, you have, the hardliners that want to hold those experiences value, and they are valuable, right? But in the end, you're not having their experience, you're having your experience.
Right.
So that's the insight, right? Get over yourself, right? Get into yourself and have your own experience, and that's just the problem I find with man, not really systems, right? Everybody's the control around it or whatever they try to make it out to be. And, all those are so endearing and really heartfelt and things like that. But as one young person said to me, is like, we don't really care. We just want to learn. I had a student who was like, 20 years old. And she's like, I don't care about what all your second generation fights were all about. I just want to learn Pilates.
Yeah.
So they don't care, right? So like, wow, big insight there. Yeah. So that's what I think about a 40-year practice, is that you begin, you're very influenced, and it's like, can you stay course, through that life's dramas? I mean, I've had a, life-altering injury.
Right. Is there a common thread since you began doing Pilates? Like, is there one thing that you could say, this has never changed in over 40 years?
Yeah, focus on your breathing. Forget it. That's the hardest correction anybody could make. And all these exercises that you're not breathing correctly. That's the one constant thing, is that you can improve your lung capacity. Yeah. I would say that beyond all the exercises is probably, and you hear me teach, you've taken my classes, right? Now, what did I tell you? Don't breathe into your belly. Into your belly. Yeah. Always. Do not.
And it's really funny. I used to have that skill of not breathing into my belly, because I was a very vain 20-year-old, and I didn't want to have a belly. So I would suck it in. It would be sucked in all day. So I developed the technique, accidentally discovered a way of filling my lungs. I could open it so much that my back would pop, and it felt so good. And then let all the air out, and my abdominals never changed. I've lost that ability. I don't know if it's because I just let it go, or because I'm not as fixated on that, or childbirth maybe changed things in the lower, in the belly region. So I don't know.
I would think, that's the most important thing right there. Yeah. And, me, I like the feet. So giving people balance, right? Yes. I've worked people out for 40 years, and the best thing you could ever give them is give them stability.
Mm-hmm.
right? So that foot to glute connection, you know, is not just because it's the secret of athleticism, because
Right.
it's the secret of athleticism, but but that, you know, that is with how the nervous system works. You know, your brain fights for stability, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it can exhibit power.
Right.
If you're not giving your nervous system stability, you can't exhibit power, and you have thousands of compensations.
Yeah.
So that's where Joe was really good with attention and developing these training wheels, so to speak, you know,
Mm-hmm.
in our, you know, equipment and things like
Right.
that, is to give you the tools to have your nervous system work out that plan for itself.
Mm-hmm. So I'm like
Because
I'm visualizing footwork on the reformer and the fact that he developed this foot bar, the Wonder Chair, the pedal that goes up and down, the pedipole, the fact that your feet are up against the pole sometimes.
yep,
Um,
all the, you know, Cadillac stuff where you have to grab that, you know, airplane board and things like
mm-hmm.
that, those are
Mm-hmm.
really just to train the digits out there, right?
Mm.
And so uh, that, you know, let's put it this way, you know, your hands are like puppet strings to the rest of the core, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when this isn't active, this just has to muscle it. There can be lots of
Right.
compensations, but when you give that security, you know, in your hands, it
Mm-hmm.
shores up the wrist, elbow, and shoulder space, right? That's why I don't like the long fingers and the, you know, like,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Good.
the handles on the reformer were the inside of a boxing glove.
Ah, okay.
On the inside of old boxing gloves, there were these old, like, you know, like
Oh,
handles. So
right.
that's what it was. They were,
And they were wooden?
they were kind of like have like a little, it's sewn into the leather. You can feel in the old boxing gloves. There was like
Okay.
it's like grabbing a dowel.
Uh-huh. Ah, so that's really
That's
powerful, wrapping the fingers around. I mean,
that's this whole thing about getting the fascial, you know,
right.
wounding. You know that exercise that we do like this?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
beanbag device, the
Yeah.
roll-up
So you go
device.
like this and stretch and
Right.
stretch. So
Mm-hmm.
that was just help stretch this fascial, which is in gymnastics is your brachialis when you
Mm-hmm.
hang from the
Mm-hmm.
rings. See? So that's your brachialis. So that's the long line of your fascial line down into your back.
Mm.
So when you use those, you know, the rowing, you're
Right.
trying to get into your back muscles.
Mm-hmm.
That's, you know, I mean, that's the way I teach it. But you know, I'm also work with boxers. You know,
Right.
I worked at Church Street Boxing with a guy down there. He was a big heavyweight guy, and
Mm-hmm.
we work with these things. You know, and I look at his hand. And we, you know, I mean, and that helps me inform me to do Pilates, right?
Mm-hmm. It gives you
So
more
all,
insight into the
yeah,
mind of Joseph Pilates with that boxer side of
right.
his.
And
Yeah.
it's not just to like be able to hit and stuff, but just some of the just like how they hold things.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
this is Tai Chi, right? So this is a grip where you cross that middle finger, right, and then
Oh gosh.
wrap it around like that, and now your hand
Oh
is
wow.
stronger than it is if you grip like this.
Yeah. No, it's oh my goodness. Yeah, it brought all
See how
everything.
those weaknesses there like this?
Mm-hmm.
So if you go long line, okay, so in yoga, this is your stability of your nervous system. Okay, this is the digestion and muscles. So if you
Oh,
go stability and you lock it down and then cross over, you have this bludgeon. And see how that spreads the fascia?
yeah. No, this is a really awesome stretch here.
Strong, strong,
Yeah.
strong. That's Tai Chi. Okay?
Oh,
So, you know, anyway, so that's
that's the hand.
if we do that with our feet, that's what I teach you guys with the feet. I think that's what
Yeah.
Joe was doing with the tense, you know, the foot stuff
Mm-hmm.
and how that foot to glute is really your hamstring glute, you know, and that's your powerhouse.
Mm-hmm.
Basically.
There's also like the balancing effect. You know, a lot of people get very front oriented. They're thinking ab centric. You know, what are my
Well,
abs
the
doing?
foot to
What they look
glute
like.
is your posterior chain. If you can get that really, really strong, then
Yeah.
that foot to glute is the way I get into the core, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if your glute is posterior tilted, you know, for instance, if I'm tilting my pelvis, my ab
Right.
co-contracts with my glute. So
Uh-huh.
there's no cueing of the lower abs when your glutes
Right.
are on.
Mm-hmm.
So as an athlete, you know, that's why you don't see them do sit-ups. And they have like 9 packs,
Right.
right? Because their glutes are the dominant, right? When you're quad dominant, right, you, you're just riddled in pain,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? Most of the athletes I see that are quad dominant, just riddled in pain.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of
The
stories around like surgeries and knee problems and things
I was
like
just
that.
thinking that, yeah, knee problems, and then they must translate into ankle and foot and hip.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the foot, you know, things like I said is really important. Mapping out your feet,
Mm-hmm.
and it's partly because I wore ski boots. You know, I had a little talk on that once, as you know, the ski boots kind of cramp my toes like this.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked as a, ski patrolman up there on the hill, 160 days in ski boots.
Wow.
So yeah,
While
feet
you were
are.
working in New York, or this was?
No, this is when I was in Salt Lake.
Oh, okay.
1 year I just, that was 3 years I worked on the ski patrol.
Mm-hmm.
But, it was just like the feet are important, and all I want to do is walk in the sand after that.
Yeah.
That whole
Yeah.
season of skiing, right? Just want to spread my toes and right.
Mm-hmm.
But
So it makes
yeah,
you more sensitive.
Pilates was different for me being an athlete because I didn't relate to any of the dance cues, didn't relate to any of the moves, any of it. It doesn't make sense to me because it wasn't applicable to anything I do.
Right. Yeah. And I think
Right.
that's the trap that we can sort of get stuck in, and think of it as, and it's what's led people to believe that it's dance-like stretch and dance-like movement, that you have
No,
to
dancers
be.
should actually go to CrossFit. You know? It's
Yeah.
I just don't, I think everybody wants athletes and the Pilates, everybody wants like men in Pilates, everybody wants this in Pilates, but you're not teaching the things that attract people like that.
Right. Yeah.
Simple, so I don't know what to say. I don't have the solution. What
Yeah.
attracted me was just the challenges in itself and where I was at in my life,
Mm-hmm.
right? And just thought it was a cool thing, and just caught the fever and just earnestly had to practice. Just watch my body change and improve. I mean, I don't, I believe in other systems too, I don't
Yeah.
believe in just this system, right? So it's like I use those other systems to inform my practice.
Mm-hmm.
It's like my yoga teacher said to me. She says, look, you're better than me because you lift weights, you run, you swim, you do Pilates, and all I do is yoga.
Mm-hmm.
You're more informed than me.
Yeah.
You see that? So
Yeah.
use that in your practice to
Mm-hmm.
inform you to come to here and practice.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So it's the same thing that we're trying to do for people. Like what Ramona did for me is like, I want to go run triathlons. So come here to help it inform you to go run better.
Right.
You see what I mean? Like that. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
rather than me trying to teach you, so you need to roll through your spine, right? And that's
I'm
also
guilty of
another
that.
thing. And that's also another thing. I think there's too much excessive rolling and trying to
Mm-hmm.
open up people's spines. The spine's just, it will open up when you're stronger.
Right.
It won't open up. Your body's trying to protect you,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
from doing that to it. So sometimes I think the excessive rolling's hurting people, not helping people.
Mm-hmm.
Most athletes don't need to roll through their spine.
Mm. Yeah. Well, there's so many topics that
Look,
come
we
up.
just hold our spines and then we move our body around a core
Right.
that's kind of tight.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's helpful if you're like rolling, like in gymnastics, when you're tumbling or diving or
Right.
those type of things. And that's what Pilates is, beginning gymnastics or diving or things like that.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
you don't see dancers rolling around on the floor. Well, not classical versions. You see, you know,
Mhm.
other type, do
Right, they're
that.
mostly
But
up on their
hmm
feet.
that's why I said feet to glute. If you want to be an athlete, feet to glute.
Right.
Most of the dancers are up
Yeah.
on their feet, right? So,
Mhm.
and I've
Yeah.
talked to real pro dancers, and it's so important to have that foot to glute connection, even at that level. It's even more important.
Mhm. Absolutely.
John Claude Nelson, I had a conversation with him, when I
Mhm.
was talking about foot to glute connection. He's like, yes.
Mhm.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Yeah. And he was a pro
Right.
dancer, like unbelievable, right? So
Mhm.
it's, that changed my whole perspective on Pilates when everybody was teaching stomach, stomach, stomach. And I was like,
Mhm.
no, foot to glute, foot to glute. And I was
Yeah.
just I was a square peg in a round hole. Like the
Were
whole
there
industry was going, this. And I was
right.
like,
When did
oop,
that happen? Are you talking about the 90s?
yeah, yeah,
Because I
yeah.
think that's when, well, I hadn't heard about Pilates then yet, but it was maybe another almost 10 years later. So about 7 years later, where I heard people talking about Pilates on our university campus. And I was asking people like, so you go to Pilates, and people's shapes seemed to change. I mean, it
Hmm.
was, there was something different about them. It wasn't just about going to the gym and looking buff, but you could see that they were lean in through the center. I don't want to use that word because that's kind of charged, but that's kind of what was happening to these girls. And I asked them, so what does Pilates do? And they said, oh, it's all abs.
Right.
So that's what
Well,
arrived in town in
we
early
have
2000, 20 years
I
ago.
think we have a huge opportunity, and I always say this every time I'm live with somebody, is that
Mm-hmm.
this platform that we're on and Instagram stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
everybody's doing video learning and this and that, this gives us a chance to really move Pilates forward in an athletic
Yes.
direction, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to stay stuck in the 1950s and go back at the archival photos and practice, your little dance routine in the corner, the rest of the world's going to go forward in this athletic direction.
Right.
So, and people are
Yeah.
wondering why people aren't attracted to Pilates. Well, they are worldwide. There's people really discovering this like on all kinds of levels in other countries other than where your microcosm is.
Right.
And they don't care about what you didn't learn or want to learn. They want to learn. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why I said there's a huge opportunity, for us, me being a second generation teacher, to give people a positive and, athletic experience when they come to class.
Yeah.
You've been to my class. What do you experience?
Yeah. It's something that I can't replicate, that's for sure. And it's something but I want to be able to practice it. And so it's I mean, I go into sort of a newbie mindset. So I love that because finding new connections in my body, and it's something that has to be lived. You have to definitely feel it and experience it and digest it. And I think part of it is also, I recognize that you've done this for 40 years. And so it's not something that you just, I don't, it's something that you've lived, and it's
Mm-hmm.
matured over 40 years. And so whatever you're bringing to the class, it
Or
has
whatever piece that day, right? It's just
yeah,
whatever.
it
Yeah.
has to work its way slowly through the system. So maybe you experience in the body, later on you think about it, and then you try to practice it. So I just feel like I have to live with it it's a very new experience because
Mm-hmm.
your playlist for the class is very different from anything I've ever experienced. It's a very unique blending of everything that but at the same time, it's very classical Pilates. It's
Mm-hmm.
recognizable as classical Pilates. And
Mm-hmm.
my,
Yeah, I don't, whoever's watching this or whoever gets to watch this, I don't veer off the classical map. I just give you
right.
skills to do the classical
Yeah.
exercises.
And
And so what
it's,
I find is a lot of people lack the skill in whatever joint space that
right.
they're doing
Yes.
or wherever it is. So
Yeah.
all I'm trying to do is give you in your toolbox to unpack this exercise. Here's the skills that needed to do this, right? Task.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the challenge. Now go to work,
Yeah.
right? here's the Pilates move. And I found that teaching like 15 years inside of a gym where every day I was faced with somebody I didn't know in New York, right? I live in New York City. And in the gym, there was new people every day that didn't know one shinola about Pilates at all.
Yeah.
Right? So I had to learn how to teach and communicate every day the skills that are needed to do Pilates.
That brings up,
Does that make sense?
Makes a whole lot of sense.
So I was like, my 15 years of instructional practice became about how to take a global look at this. If you're new to this today, this is what we're doing, right? This is how you kind of might get an idea or have this experience or feel this somewhere. You know, that kind of thing.
But do you use different language then when you are teaching somebody who knows Pilates?
Yes.
How is it different?
It's easier. You guys know the work. Now I just set you guys up and then give you a task,
right?
You know, or give you a drill that's like, might give you a challenge that you haven't looked at that workspace in it, or, you know, like, what did we do yesterday, right? We pull, and then what did I have you do? Hold your leg up against this side, and then what did your joint, you know, it's like, wait a minute, my joint can do all that. Not just one way, right?
It was an eye-opener because it was so simple. It was the simplicity of it that was surprising, because I think we can overcomplicate and
so
overthink.
Much.
We overthink movement, definitely. In and outside of Pilates, we overcomplicate things with, I think
it's the simple things that are really the things that I like in workouts, right? Not the and if you want to know what a 40-year practice looks like, I practice the basics every day. So if sun salutation is your yoga, do your sun salutations, you know. They're different every day. They're not the same every day. You know, your moods are different every day. Your sleep is different every day, you know.
Right.
You know, so that's really the gem. That is what polishing the facets of your character is, or polishing the facets of your joints, if you want to say, is that, like I said yesterday, the dust collects at the corners of a river, right? Garbage. And these are just rivers of fluid. Even your bone marrow is the densest river of the fluid in there, right? And the bone marrow can move. So at the bank of a river, garbage collects. Right? So you got to get in there and flush. That's what this is a pump.
Right.
And it's going to just pump fluid like through this space, and it's going to close fluid off and stop fluid, right? And so that's what cleans out your joints. Or squeeze like a towel, like, you know, you hear like Joseph Pilates, you know, like the twist. You know?
Or open that jam jar.
You know, or whatever it is. See, that is
do
simple,
it on your own.
Right? Yeah, simple stuff.
Yeah.
You know, those tensity and stuff is what is, that's why movement, you know, and that's why dance is good. You want to move your body differently. You know, and that's why you know, everything informs your practice, right? These are just like neurological setups to help you and give you the training wheels, like I said, to have your brain learn something. That's why I like the Tai Chi, because Tai Chi doesn't translate into Chi or, you know, like line. It really translates into highest learning. So if you look at that, Tai Chi means your brain is learning the highest. So if you practice these techniques and you go nice and slow, what is your brain learning? It knows that millimeter, knows that millimeter, knows that millimeter, knows that millimeter, knows that millimeter. You see? So now just apply that to the yoga, you know?
Right.
Now my brain is learning, right? My brain is learning.
Well, you also take ownership of your movement. Like you own every bit of that movement.
And that's where Pilates slower is a little bit better than faster, right? And we wanted to try to make it athletic, but it's motor control system. He called it contrology for a reason.
Right.
So it's motor control, so that you're learning what this joint space, how it motors through its home, its house.
Right.
This is a house, right? It has a north, an upstairs, has a downstairs,
Right.
back room, front room, right? And the joints only get really cranky is when they don't visit their houses, the rooms in their houses, right? So when you're doing all this irrigation, this is what you're doing inside your house, is you're cleaning it, right? So it's like brushing the teeth, you know? So that's why I look at my practice is like, oh, I'm going to brush through that site today.
Right. But what about the idea, the timing of things? Because was it true that Romana had you do mat and then reformer? Like you were supposed to be able to do, I hear numerous people say,
who cares what she said, right? So the whole idea is that it was so frustrating back in that whole program, because everybody, you know, at the inception of all this just fought. So what do you get out of fighting? You get more fighting. And what do the second generation people do? They fight. And that's all we do is fight. So like I stayed away from it for like 20 some odd years, but because I saw that this was, you know, like, well, humans have a hard time getting along already, so this is just going to give them a reason not to get along.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's confusing, and I'll say this, is that every week we went to Romana's, she changed the tree stretch because she didn't like the way Bob taught it that week. So she changed it because she wanted to be...
Bless you.
She wanted to have this sole authority on, you know, the tree stretch or whatever it was, or whatever she was on that day. And I get it, you know, as a teacher now, because I'll see things, I'm like, no. And you see things that you want to, you know, that's important to you.
Right.
And it is, because there's some fundamental reason why you are wholeheartedly invested in your, you know, your technique or whatever. And so there's validity in it. But as a student, as a paying person to pay for a certification, what we got out of it was like, it depends on the body that's in front of you.
And that body changes.
Yeah.
From
So
week
it was
to
like,
week. So
then everybody wanted to like pin it down, but you can't do that because you're treating somebody's nervous system for the first time in that exercise. So you can't and I thought a lot of the corrections were these very highly gymnastic or flexible ballet corrections that a lot of people just can't do. Can't even get into the position, beginner calisthenic position, and we're giving them these core and it's like person can't even think, you know, and you know what I mean? That's
or
not
breathe.
That's not even helpful. So so what I found is helpful is doing this. Okay, good. Yep, 500 more.
Okay, put your blinders on. Peek.
And then by 500 times, you know, then you can make a correction of someone's handstands, because the endeavor of doing it 500 times wrong, they learn something. Not that I want people to don't misinterpret. I don't want people to do it 500 times wrong, but you condition yourself to maybe then take a correction.
Is it also it's in the 500, the spirit, getting back to the spirit, the idea that it's the spirit of learning every time you do it. So each repetition is
put it this way. I go up into a handstand, try to find balance for a minute. There you go. Now you got now you have your challenge 500 times until you can hold your balance for a minute. Then once you hold your balance for a minute, okay, now straighten up your body. But your wrists and your hands and your shoulders and all that had to adapt to those stresses just to be able to hold your body weight upside down and just be able to, hey, this is a new perspective.
It's
you
been
know,
like
I'm
those
upside down, right?
Yeah, anti-earthquake buildings that
So
sway.
That's what we're giving people, and people have to understand we're just giving people experiences. That's it. For the first 10th, maybe 100th time, and you know, why do they have to pay you $25,000 to have this super experience? Like, no, You just give them the experience the first time and then just let them go at it. That's what got me into Pilates. It's like, oh shit, this is hard.
Mm-hmm. They got your
And
attention.
that got my attention. So that's what I try to do with people. Like, there's your challenge. Wow, it's okay, there you go. Now work towards that.
Right.
You know, now that will give you a well full of, you know, lists to do and workspaces and all kinds of things in your, you know, to, wow, my shoulder really doesn't like that. What do I need to do that?
Right.
You know, and I've, you know, overcome a lot of injuries, and this highlights about the PT and then doing like yoga system or practice. Function isn't separate in methods. Your body functions whether you're lifting weights, whether you're doing yoga, whether you're doing Pilates. So you don't have something that supersedes function.
Right.
And I feel like Pilates community, you know, they feel like they have this super way to do things, and that, you know, but it's not functional.
The super way to do things that's not functional, right?
Right. You know, it's like it doesn't translate to anything else in fitness anywhere.
Right.
You know, it's like, why is that so special? And then I wonder why they think nobody's attracted to Pilates.
Right. We have to keep it functional.
People can see we're really smart in today's world. The physical culture is not dumb. They're not. They're really, really, really smart. And there's a lot of information. So if you're not teaching correct fitness per se,
right,
well, it doesn't translate to what I want to do over here, run or play this sport or that sport.
Right. Lengthening can become its own goal, and finding your tailbone and your pelvic position, which can really be a mystery to people.
Yeah, you know, that's the yoga, right? Building a better relationship with yourself. That's what yoga means, is union with self, right? So if you have to, you know, do 100 burpees to find yourself, then do 100 burpees, right? So you can feel what it's like to be totally exhausted and hinged out, and and arms hurt and back bending and whatever. But you know, it's an experience, right? So that's, you know, I keep trying to have this experience of Pilates growth because I found there was longevity in it. And exercise systems that had longevity was what I was interested in. You know, yoga system had longevity in it. Pilates system had longevity. Tai Chi had longevity in it. Weight training,
not so much.
And I'll tell you something about weight training. My Tai Chi teacher taught me when I was very young. He said, no weights. Try not, if you do lift weights, not too much. Because he said that your heart muscle, when you build muscle tissue, your heart now has to work 25% harder. Because it has 25% more material to push blood through. And we're finding that true today now with all these weightlifters dying of heart problems.
Right. So those are the cases where people say, oh, but he was so fit. He went to the gym this morning.
Check your heart, you know, I mean, all these other things, you know, just even that guy who was Oprah Winfrey's trainer, right? Bob, he had a heart attack. Guy was 54, my age, 55 years old, you know, cardio specialist for Oprah Winfrey, boom, on the treadmill one day, had a heart attack, then went on tour talking about go get your heart checked. Right? So, and he was a cardio guy, right? He was a cardio guy.
Okay.
So,
all right, we have a lot to talk about in the second part. So this is just the first part. I remember when I asked you, I said it's going to be
40 years of practice, right?
Yeah.
What does it look like?
Can't fit it into a year, in an hour.
So what I can say is that, you know, pick one thing and stick with it. You know, if you just find that one thing that's going to spark you to get up every day, and if it's this movement pattern, then do that. You know, if it's something else, do that. You know, Pilates is your thing, you know, which is you and I have found, you know, it's seriously a wonderful tool set. It's like the best toolbox. And that you can find for mobility, strength, neural connection, you know, contrology, motor control. Is it going to make you strong like lifting weights or have power and speed? Yes, you can work towards that, right? But this is about a motor control program, I think. You know,
Yeah.
try
And
to
that's really huge for, hello, thanks for joining us. That's really huge for stability and coordination and balance and, you know, recovery from injury, recovery from overuse, strenuous use.
and this is a part where we can talk about on the second hour is that I think Joe's concept of return to life
Yeah.
was a lot of what we talked about in terms of what fascia means.
Right. Yes.
And that this fascia is like its own organ. It's not muscle. Muscle's separate, but the fascia is your whole skin. So your skin is an organ. It's the largest organ in your body. So the fascia is the second skin. You could say it's the second largest organ in your body, or even bigger, because it connects all the eye tissue in your organs and things like that. So I believe that we're hydrating the fascia when we do Pilates with all that tensioning. So
definitely.
That's what I believe his whole thing is, that your body will return to life.
It's also fabulous intuition that Joseph Pilates talks about wringing out a towel. And, you know, so there's this image of when you wring out a wet towel, it's going to release a lot of the liquid that was contained in there. So I think it's a great metaphor. He didn't know. Did he know he was talking about fascia?
I think, you know, this is what my understanding is that pre-1940s or pre-1920s, most of the major exercise systems in the globe were fascial modeled.
But
so yeah, martial arts, Tai Chi,
knowingly,
like yoga,
or
I think it's lost in translation. They didn't know how to translate this, how to activate, and certain teachers were good. And I'll bring this up, and if anybody stayed with this conversation, I'll try to bring it up. But George Balashin taught this fascia shortening of the foot, and Romana was a George Balashin dancer.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
So whether or not Romana could translate what she learned from George Balashin, maybe it got lost. Maybe it got lost, right?
You know, okay, so I learned something very similar as a pianist. I had a teacher who studied in New York, and she taught me to shorten the foot, because we use the foot as pianists to use the pedal.
Yes, yes.
And that you shorten the foot so that your foot isn't just like passively getting molded by the pedal.
Right.
And that just somehow, it's a better, I don't know how she explained it, but my experience of that was you had more control over the pedal, and that the connection from the foot to your ear was immediate. And then in the midst, you have your fingers and so there's a lot going on. But
so there was a lot in these ancient programs where they knew how to play your instrument, right? So I learned another whole system, which is called Taoism on the yoga principle. It was just basically how to do feng shui of the body through the magic square. So you can square out any part or feng shui of your body. These are your hips. This is your midsection. This is your heart, your eyes, and your face and shoulders up here. So, you know, you have all these points here, like our pressure points in the acupressure systems. And so now when you put your hand on a mat, now you have control over all the organs in your body by pressing those sections down against the mat.
Wow.
So like a piano, your hands are literally the meridians and stuff to your organs. So when you don't press those things down in your hands, and I'll show this to you one day, that's what I do when I do my handstands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right? So I'm sitting there playing my neurology while I'm in my handstand. So then my elbows don't get tired, my shoulders don't get tired, and that your neurology is always traveling around housing that position.
You're playing all the different connections in your body like a musician.
Yeah. And that's what I believe that book stuff is the same thing. If you're lazy in your feet, you're lazy upstream.
Yep.
Right? So all that is like a puppet string that goes upstream, literally through the skull, like to your ears and all that.
Yeah.
That's why jump roping is so important. Right?
Oh, that's right. You get into jump rope too. Yeah. And it takes, oh my goodness, it takes so little to get so much done with jump roping.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's like really cool.
Yeah,
Well,
and I
listen,
think
I've got to run, so I
yeah,
got to teach here.
we
But
went a little over time, but thanks so much for your time, and thanks. I look forward to part two, and hopefully next class I can join on Monday.
and
So
thanks for everybody who took the time and who to watch this. And if you replayed it and watched it, thank you. All right, we'll see you soon.
all right, see ya.
Thanks, Anita. Bye bye.
Bye bye.